You can't sit here, my older cousin Megan smirked as I pulled out a chair at the far end of the reception hall. That's the kids' table. The laughter that followed wasn't just from the actual children seated nearby. It came from my own mother. My aunt. Even my sister glanced over from the head table, her lips curling into that tight, satisfied smile she always wore when I was humiliated. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us what would you do in this situation? Be honest, tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. I stood frozen, my thrift store heels already blistering my feet. My dress, a faded blue one I'd borrowed from a neighbor and altered by hand, suddenly felt like a beacon of shame under the chandelier light. I forced a shaky smile. There are no other seats. Megan shrugged. Should have RSVP'd with someone. Or maybe at least worn something that didn't scream donation bin. She can't even afford a proper dress, my mother whispered, loud enough for half the table to hear. The other half leaned in. Her words were bullets. I absorb each one. I sat anyway, head down, silent. If I didn't, I'd cry. And if I cried, they'd win. They already had. Until, excuse me, a deep, clear voice echoed above the snickers. Is this seat taken? I looked up and forgot how to breathe. Standing beside me in a tailored black suit was Drew Hayes, the CEO of Hayes Aerospace. He wasn't just rich. He was everywhere, on TV and magazines, Forbes' list of top tech entrepreneurs under 35. I blinked, unsure if I was hallucinating. Then came the real shock. He wasn't alone. Behind him stood two more men in sharp suits. Security detail. The room hushed. Megan's wine glass hit the table with a quiet clink. My mother paled. Drew? I stammered. What are you doing here? His smile was soft, almost teasing. Looking for a seat. But more importantly, I came for you, Riley. He said my name like it was sacred. Then, he pulled out the chair beside me, completely ignoring the gaping crowd, and sat down like he belonged there. Like I belonged. The air shifted. You could feel it. Then came the moment I will never forget. He reached into his inside pocket and placed something in front of me, a small velvet box. The room collectively held its breath. Let's not do this here, I whispered, panicked. My cheeks burned. I hadn't told him the wedding was today. I hadn't expected him to come. Drew chuckled. I don't care about here. I care about you. And I think it's time they understand what that means. He stood again, box in hand, and turned to face the head table where my sister, the bride, was sipping champagne and smirking. Sorry to interrupt, he called out politely, but I'm here for Riley. Gasps. Aunt Carol dropped her fork. And then Drew opened the box. Inside wasn't a ring. It was a sleek black card, emblazoned with a gold H, his private account access. The one his CFO had once joked could buy a penthouse in Manhattan with a swipe. I believe in investing in brilliance, he said, locking eyes with me. And Riley? She's the smartest woman I know. She's about to launch her own nonprofit. I'm funding it. I stared at him, stunned. That wasn't in our last conversation. I hadn't even sent him the pitch deck yet. My mother was clutching her chest like she couldn't breathe. My sister's lips parted in horror. So, if this seat is still open, Drew turned to the room with a smile. I think I'll stay right here. And just like that, the same people who laughed at me began to tremble. No one moved. Not even the band. The violins hung in midair as if even the strings themselves were stunned. My hands trembled on the linen napkin. I stared at the black card Drew had laid in front of me, then at him, trying to process what had just happened. He wasn't a man who made dramatic entrances. Drew Hayes was quiet power. Controlled. Calculated. So, why was he here? Why now? My mother was the first to speak, her voice shrill and cracking. Is this some kind of joke? Drew looked at her. Not with malice. Just the way you'd glance at someone unimportant who'd interrupted a thought. You must be Mrs. Brennan, he said calmly. I am her mother, she snapped. And I don't know what you think you're doing, but we don't need your theatrics here. I swallowed the lump rising in my throat. Mom. She cut me off. You think showing up with your rich boyfriend makes you someone? You're still the girl who barely scraped through community college. Still working part-time in that dusty library with no AC.
Drew stepped forward then.
Not loud. Not angry. Just firm. She's also the woman who helped digitize over 10,000 archival records by hand. Who taught literacy classes on weekends. Who supported her neighbor's autistic son for free when no one else would. And who built a proposal strong enough to get a yes from me before I even finished reading it. My chest tightened. He wasn't just defending me.
He saw me.
For the first time, I felt like I wasn't surviving, I was standing. You don't know what kind of girl she is, my mother muttered, turning red. She's not who you think she is. She's not polished. She's not like them. She pointed toward my sister and her new husband. Drew smiled. Exactly. She's better. I don't know what broke my sister more, the insult or the applause that came from a couple of distant tables. Because people were watching. The waitstaff, guests from the groom's side, strangers. And they were nodding. Murmurs began swirling. That's Drew Hayes, right? Isn't he worth like 500 million? Who's she? And just like that, the narrative flipped. Not the loser. Not the one in the borrowed dress. Not the girl at the kids' table.
No.
I was someone worth standing for. Let's go, Drew whispered to me, holding out his hand. I can't just leave, I murmured. Yes, you can, he said gently. You don't owe them a single second more. I stood. The silence was deafening. Every step I took alongside him felt like thunder. Then someone shouted, "Wait." It was my sister. She was shaking, red-faced. You can't just walk out like that. This is my day. Drew turned slightly. Then maybe next time, don't start it by humiliating the wrong person. My sister opened her mouth.
Closed it.
Her new husband just stared like a deer in headlights. And then, Drew reached into his pocket one last time and handed a white envelope to the wedding coordinator. Send this to the venue manager. I'll cover the rest of the evening's bill. Gasps again. He turned to me. Ready? I nodded. And as we walked past the table that once mocked me, I didn't look back. But I heard my mother whisper, barely breathing. What have we done? The car that waited outside wasn't a typical limo. It was Drew's personal Tesla Model X, midnight silver with a custom matte finish, windows tinted like obsidian. The driver opened the door, and Drew helped me in as if I were royalty, not the forgotten daughter they pushed to the corner table. As the door shut and the silence settled, I finally exhaled. The tears came instantly. Not loud, just silent, trembling drops down my cheeks. I wasn't crying because I was hurt. I was crying because someone finally stood with me. And not just anyone, someone the world respected. Someone who didn't care about my past or my financial status. He just saw my worth. Drew didn't speak right away. He just took my hand, soft and steady. I'm sorry, I whispered. I didn't expect you to show up.
I didn't want you to see me like that.
He turned to me, his voice low. Like what? Brave? Graceful? Patient? Even when they didn't deserve your silence. I laughed bitterly. More like humiliated. That dress? It cost $18 from a thrift store. And that table, they didn't even set it properly. No place cards. No napkins. Just leftover forks and a plastic vase. Drew leaned back. And yet you sat anyway. You sat with dignity. You didn't raise your voice. You didn't storm off. Riley, I've been in boardrooms with billionaires who didn't have a fraction of the composure you showed tonight. His words were so sincere it hurt. I was always the invisible one, I said, voice breaking. My sister was the golden child. Honor student. Private school. Engagements announced in magazines. And me? I was the side note. Her? I've been eating dollar ramen and tutoring kids just to survive. He didn't interrupt. He just listened. And every time I tried to build something for myself, I continued, they'd laugh. Say things like, you think you're changing the world with books? They never came to my graduation. My mother even told me once, you're just not meant for the spotlight. Drew finally spoke. She was wrong. He pulled out his phone, tapped something, and turned it toward me. It was my proposal. The nonprofit I'd poured my soul into. My dream to build community reading centers for underfunded neighborhoods across the country. And on the screen, there was a number. 6 zeros. "I'm giving you full funding," he said.
And a team.
"You don't need their approval anymore." I gasped. "But I haven't even finalized the plan. The legal stuff isn't done." "I haven't. You have the heart. You have the vision. That's more than most. I'll help you find the rest." Silence. Then something inside me cracked. Not the kind that breaks, no. The kind that opens. "Why me?" I whispered. His gaze softened. "Because I've seen you. All those days you thought no one was watching? I was. At that charity event where you brought handmade books. At the literacy rally where your voice shook but your message didn't. You've always stood tall in small rooms. It's time the world caught up." I stared at him. And for the first time in years, I believed him. He leaned in just slightly. "Can I take you somewhere?" "Where?" "To show you how much they underestimated you." And before I could respond, the car pulled away, carrying me not just out of a wedding, but into a whole new life. The car ride was quiet at first, not because we had nothing to say, but because there was too much to feel. My hands were still trembling. My thoughts raced between disbelief and relief. I kept glancing down at the envelope Drew had handed the coordinator. He paid for the entire wedding reception. Not to impress. To silence cruelty. The city lights flickered past as we pulled into a private driveway lined with tall hedges and glowing lamps. The gate opened without a sound. "This is my place in Manhattan," Drew said softly. "I thought you could rest here for a while. Away from all that." The car stopped in front of a modern glass estate. It wasn't loud money. It was quiet luxury, like everything about Drew.
Clean.
Sharp. Thoughtful. "I don't need," I started. He cut me off. "You need a moment to remember who you are. You've been running on empty for too long." I followed him inside, and the warmth hit me instantly. Soft light.
Clean air.
A faint scent of cedar and vanilla. And most surreal of all, photographs. Not of him alone, but of moments I had forgotten he had witnessed. There was a picture of me from 2 years ago, standing on a sidewalk in the rain, handing out flyers for my reading program. Another of me at the school where I volunteered, holding a stack of worn-out books with duct-tape spines. My knees nearly gave out. "You had these?" I whispered. He nodded. "You inspired me long before you ever knew my name." We sat on the couch, and I let the silence stretch. Then I turned to him and asked the one thing that had been clawing at me since the wedding. "Why did you come today? You never said you'd show up. I didn't even invite you." Drew's eyes held mine. "Because I saw the RSVP list. I saw how they listed you. Riley Brennan, no guest. And I knew they were setting the stage for something cruel. I've seen it before. The way families tear down the ones who don't shine the way they want them to." I felt my throat tighten. So I decided if they wanted a show, I'd give them one. But not for revenge. For you. I wanted to break down right then. I didn't even know how to process being chosen like this. "I have something else," he said, standing and pulling out a slim laptop from his briefcase. He opened it and pulled up a website, New York Civic Media. My photo was on the front page. Not from the wedding. From earlier that week. A feature story titled, "The Woman Reviving Literacy, One Block at a Time." Drew smiled. "I pitched your story. They've been looking for a new face to feature in their Change Agents campaign. I sent your work, your stats, and a few of those photos." "You're kidding." "They emailed me the draft this morning. It goes live at midnight." I stared at the screen. My photo. My words. My vision. And suddenly, something shifted inside me. I wasn't a background character anymore. I was the headline. By the next morning, everything had changed. When I woke up in Drew's guest room, sunlight spilling through linen curtains, soft sheets tangled around my limbs, it felt like a dream. But the laptop still sat open on the desk beside me, my face on the front page of a major news site. The headline was real. The article was real. And so was the storm it unleashed. By 8:17 a.m., I had 147 unread emails. By 9 o'clock, 3 producers from national morning shows had contacted me. By 10:32, I was trending on Twitter. Hashtag Riley the Reader. Hashtag Change Agent. Hashtag From Kids Table to Heroin. But none of that compared to what happened at 11:13 a.m. My mother called. I let it ring. Then my sister texted.
Please. We need to talk.
Mom is freaking out. What the hell is going on? Drew and I were already en route to the studio where I'd agreed to give a short interview. On the ride, I asked him, should I go see them? He looked at me thoughtfully. Only if you're doing it for you. Not for closure. Not for validation. You don't need their version of sorry. You already won. But part of me still needed to see their faces. So after the interview, I asked the driver to take a detour. We stopped in front of my parents' house, the same modest brick home where I'd been told over and over again that dreams were luxuries people like me couldn't afford. I knocked on the door. It opened fast, too fast. My mother stood there, pale, trembling. My father behind her. My sister to the side, mascara smeared, phone still in hand. Riley, my mother breathed. You're on television. I know. My sister stepped forward. Why didn't you tell us you knew him? I didn't think it mattered to you. It does now, she snapped. We didn't mean to make you feel small. We just thought you were always the quiet one. The bookworm. You never wanted the spotlight. No, I corrected. You just never let me have it. My mother reached for my hand. Riley, the things we said at the wedding, we were just joking. You know how family is. Do you? I asked softly. Because a real family doesn't mock you at your lowest. A real family doesn't humiliate you in front of strangers. A real family doesn't call your dream pathetic. She burst into tears. And then, like a scene I never expected, she fell to her knees. Right there on the porch. I'm so sorry, she whispered. We were wrong. We were so wrong. My father followed, a heavy man who'd rarely spoken much. He knelt slowly, as if weighted down by shame. Even my sister, who once rolled her eyes at my every word, sat down on the steps, head in her hands. They didn't cry for me. They cried for what they lost, the version of me they never bothered to know. Drew waited by the car. I didn't stay long. Just long enough to say, I forgive you, but I won't forget. Then I left, because the girl they once laughed at was gone. In her place stood a woman with power, purpose, and peace. And as the door closed behind me, I knew I'd never be invisible again. If this story hits you even a little, just hit that like button.
It helps more than you think.
Don't forget to subscribe if you've ever felt this kind of pain. You're not alone.